I'm going to fix this plug by cutting these wires off here, combining two larger ones into an eyelet, and then taking this white wire and connecting it to the white wire that's hanging around on the alternator. And then the other plug will just plug directly into the alternator. At that point, I'll tighten everything down, put the belt back on. I am gonna have to get another bolt for the top, and then we should be ready to test this bad boy. So let's get started. So before we start cutting anything, one more fitment test we want to do is I'm going to check to make sure that this wire, the plug for the alternator, actually plugs in. Now, fortunately, this alternator is still loose, so maybe that was a blessing in disguise. There we go. That appears to have seated. So that looks good. So yeah, that went on just fine. And then we have the larger one, which will then have to eventually go onto this eyelet that I showed you on the back. So there's actually some good news here that we didn't bolt this down because we need to have this thing loose so I can connect those wires, and then we'll move it into position, into place. So that worked out pretty good. So I'm now going to get started on the splicing of the big one, the big plug. All right, so this is the big plug here. Okay, it comes with two orange and black wires, right, right here, and then one small white wire. Now this white wire connects to, I don't know if you can see it here, probably right here on, if you look right over here on the screen, you can see it between this little white wire here, okay, that's coming off the alternator will connect to this white wire here. And then these two big plugs will be merged together, put into one eyelet, and then connected to the backside bolt that you saw on the back of the alternator. And then that'll get tightened down, and then that will conclude the electrical connections. So let's get started. We have disconnected our battery. Make sure everybody's aware of that. I don't want anybody getting fried. Next, we take our electric cutters, okay, and make my first cut. Just for safety purposes, just in case, I don't want to cut it flush, because if I have for some reason reconnect this bad boy, let's have something to connect it to. So there, that first cut is made. All right, and then that cut is made, and then that cut is made. That is off. I'll lay that down right there. So next, I will strip this insulation off. Then I'm going to get my box cutter, and be careful, don't cut yourself. And the reason I'm using this is because I don't want to unwrap this entire insulation package, because it takes it all the way back to the wiring harness, which I'd like to keep insulated as much as possible. All right, there we go. Okay, now that's starting to have some progress. There we go. Okay, and I think there we go. Okay, so now we have three separate wires. Hopefully you can see that, three separate wires. And the eyelets, I got these at O'Reilly's. What I'm gonna do is I will strip down these two big ones and I will connect these this way, okay? Then I will crimp it down with my wire crimper, and then this white ones I'm going to connect. Can't see it back here, but I'm going to connect the white ones, and I'll probably solder those and shrink wrap. So we will take care of this one piece at a time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get these eyelets going. Now to do that, first thing I have to do is figure out the size, because I believe this is 6-gauge wire, and the biggest one I've got is 10 gauge. But let's find out. There we go. So I was real careful, and I was able to strip that end off. And then I'll come back and do the same thing on this bad boy over here. I'm making sure I don't close it all the way. There we go. All right. Then I will connect these bad boys together. This piece here and put it right there. Let me get my crimper. It's good old-fashioned vice grips. Oh, not too smooth. Wait, not too smooth. Did get it to some extent. I'm going to fashion it down a little more. All right, that appears to have secured itself, which is good. Now I'm going to take some electrical tape and I am going to wrap this bad boy like nobody's business. There we go. Now that should be ready. The next thing we got to do is strip these two wires so that we can solder them. And it's the two white wires. And I'll show you those wires again. This small wire, and probably over here you can see it. This small white wire right here is what we're going to solder to this one. Now to do that, same thing. Got to find the gauge. Probably 16 gauge, but let's just make sure it's to 12 gauge first. 12 gauge works. So we'll do the same thing over here. Okay. And twist those up to where they're not afraid. Okay. Then what I do is I just kind of twist them together again in a flat pattern. Almost like initially you're tying your shoe, but you just don't tie the knot. Like that. But before I fasten that down, rubber sheaths that go over, insulations that go over here, and you heat shrink them when you're done. So we'll get that and I'll get back to you right away.